and also global changes and ecosystem services. So I should pass the word and then speak a bit of other things. Or?
I think it would be better like this, if you don't mind. So hello everybody, I'm Stéphanie Bordenave. I'm a scientist and teacher from the University of La Rochelle in France. I'm here since I'm a director of a Master of Biotechnology, and I'm here also because we are creating a brand new Master in Blue Biotechnology in the University of La Rochelle, co-financed by the EMFF Fund of the European Union. And I'm here to tell you that if you are interested in formation, if you want to participate in the formation of students, please don't hesitate to contact academic people in order to tell us what we have to do to form your future collaborators.
Good morning, everybody. I am Sébastien Cann from Pôle Mer Bretagne Atlantique. I am in charge of relationships with SMEs and for international relationships of the cluster. The cluster is gathering 350 members, small, medium, and large companies, but also academics. And we are here to help innovation process to go faster from labs to the market. And of course, the training side is very important for us.
Thank you. And I'm your moderator today, Tony Haymet. I was a professor for 20 years and a director and administrator for 15 years and now a small business owner and founder for the last 5 years. So we have a lot of experience on the panel here about the interface between education, academia, and with business, and trying to prepare the workforce for the future. So my first question goes to Joana, and that is, you're interested in technology acceleration programs. Tell us what you're up to in Portugal.
So at CIIMAR, we screen disruptive ideas and new technologies, and we drive them to these business ignition programs, or to these programs that give training to researchers, so for academia to develop its own business. But the whole idea is not for them only to develop a business and to build a startup, but to have this training and to be prepared for negotiations with companies for the licensing of their technology. So these trainings are very important. Also, what we do is regularly we try to motivate the researchers to do this. So by nature, a researcher don't want to do nothing that has to deal with businesses, right? But it's a way for us of convincing them that these type of trainings are important, at least for them to speak the same language. And to have a way, if they don't want to start a business, at least to have a way of, if they will then license their technology, they will have a budget to continue and to do their research. So this is the whole idea of trying to drive these disruptive ideas and technologies that are arriving from CIIMAR. And we do have some teams of CIIMAR that already perform these trainings. And they are now in the moment of having investors to invest in this first proof of concept that actually is the hardest part of financing, because it's investors, it's completely black. They don't really see what it's going to come. But we have some partnerships with some business angels that are willing to finance this first part. And so we have now 2 teams of CIIMAR that are probably going to be lucky in having this first financing, which we are very proud of this. And we are also supporting the creation of spin-offs at CIIMAR. That is something also that we were not used to, but we are working hard on this type of work.
Thank you. I think we'll come back to that topic. Sébastien, could I ask you, you've thought a lot about this interface between universities and enterprises. Tell us your experience and how you see this interface evolving.
Well, the main goal of the clusters is to build what we call innovation collaborative projects, which are gathering companies and labs. Since the creation of the cluster in 2005, we have certified nearly 300 projects like this, representing 860 million euros of R&D, on which we have been able to raise over 240 million euros of public fundings. These projects, of course, you can find them. We have a book with all our projects since the creation, but you can find them on our website. And typically, when you bring together researchers, companies to work together, of course, they have to learn new skills dedicated to the use of ICT, team working, the constraints of the markets. There are some. We are here with a delegation about 15 people from Brittany, and some of them are currently leading some projects, and they find great interest of having a transversal approach between what academics are used to do and what the market is requiring. It's surprising, but the entrepreneurs are very delighted to be able to give their input in improving the training process. So for the collaborative projects, one of the most important things, I think, is to work on the same goal, but on very broad base, from either to solve technological issues, but also to solve what we call societal issues, like acceptance, social acceptance. We do have some projects for farming worms, for instance, marine worms, or projects in marine renewable energies. And there is this input of social acceptance, which is very, very important. You can have the best technological concept if you don't have all the complete value chain in your scope. You won't be able to make money with this innovation.
Thank you. So, Stephanie, you're at the cutting edge. You did all the hard work of developing a new master's degree in blue biotechnology. And after all that hard work, going to all the customers and the companies, I think you started 1 month ago.
Yeah.
So could you share with us your journey and how you interacted with the companies to find out what the skills gaps were, and tell us a bit about your new master's degree?
Well, first, maybe I would like to say that researchers are sometimes have the knowledge of the market and the knowledge of what we can do with research. So I think this is not true that researchers are all not interested in how to prepare to build a company and so on. So someone are able to do that, maybe with some help, but they can do that. Concerning the master, well, we decided to prepare this new master in order to answer to some question from the SMEs in La Rochelle, because we participate in the lab as a researcher to the creation of a startup called Valbiotis, and discussing with the CEO of Valbiotis, we discovered that he wanted to recruit some people for his company, but with the actual master formation, there were finally something missing. So we decided to answer to a Blue Career project, and we built the answer to this project by the to create this master. But we built the master with 4 companies and 4 academics. So we bring together needs of companies and, well, skills valuable in the university. And we built this master, which opened the 6th of September, so we only maybe less than 1 month, with only 5 students in order to begin. But what is important is that among these 5 students, we have 2 students from not the university. They are from the life, the real life, and they wanted to come back to the university to have more knowledge on blue biotechnology. So this is important for us to be able to propose a formation a kit ready to prepare people to come back to blue biotechnology and be ready to, well, go to another job, a more qualified job. So this is the little story of this master. We are 4 countries participating to this master. Portugal, so CIIMAR is participating to this master, with the spin-off also Marinova working with us. The University Catholic of Valencia in Spain, and a Spanish company also. Well, the University of La Rochelle and Val Beauty's company, and the University of Stirling with the company called Zantila. So bringing together academicals and SMEs, we managed to prepare a brand new formation to form students.
I just would like to add something in what Sébastien just commented. That is that this need of having the complete value chain. And this is so one of the strategies of CIIMAR to deliver innovation in blue bioeconomy is really to participate and to be one of the leaders of projects that have a complete consortium. So responding to a need, to a problem, but coming from the start, from fundamental research or from research until the end users. And this is very important because you really in the end deliver a product that will enter in the market.
Sébastien, I wonder if you could give us some perspective. You're working in one of the great maritime cities of the world in Brest, and you have everything there. You have the companies, you have IFREMER, you have a huge maritime infrastructure and tradition. Tell us a little bit about how you interact within the city and the partners, and how much of your time do you spend going outside into the broader parts of France and Europe?
Well, as I mentioned, we do have 350 members. We have many opportunities to bring them together to work. One of the most significant points is that we have made like a map of the maritime sector in 6 areas, and we do have specific meetings for people who are interested in those areas. For instance, in the biological area, we do have people who are hired by IFREMER, for instance, but who spend part of their time to bring new ideas to these people. So we are having regular meeting with these small communities, but also, that's one of the essential point of the cluster, is the transversal approach. As we do believe that innovation is not a question of people who are working with the same, with people that are thorough, that they know, that they meet regularly, but innovation is also coming from the meeting of people who are, for instance, in shipbuilding, with people who are in the fishing industries, because some can have some needs, but others can bring some answers. So we are a team of about 30 people and representing 40 people full-time. And from these people, there are some people coming from academics, from engineer school, from labs, but also from a large company like Thales or Naval Group, which is the DCNS, you name them. And that's an important point also, I think, is this mix of private interest and labs concerns, because we are a kind of way to bring those people to talk each other. We do also have some special events that we created to help companies to find out some either funders. So you know that the innovation process is still a long way from the idea to the market. And when you are on the market, most of the time you have spent all of your money in innovation. So we found out also that it was important to bring the funding community to the innovation SMEs. If we want to continue this blue economy good circle and to develop, we do not only have to make innovation, we have to make innovation be realistic on the markets. And the only criteria is that the companies earn money. For that reason, we have made what we call a barometer of the blue economy. So we do question once a year the SMEs which have been involved in some collaborative projects to see how they progress from one year to the other year. And while we make the concept that they significantly have some more sales, and particularly export sales. So that's some of the way that we bring people and take and assess how they progress. Of course, we also present on quite many exhibitions like Oceanography International in London, but also with trade mission in Indonesia, for instance. These are also opportunities for our members to make some innovation projects with foreign partners and to find out some way for their products.
Thank you. Stephanie, how did you find your core group of SMEs? Were they companies that you had earlier placed students with and they said we need more of them? Or did you actively go out and find them? Tell us about that process.
Well, I have the change that to be in a lab with a company culture. So we used to have some partners from the industry. And so while we were searching some partner, we looked inside our book and said, okay, maybe we can ask to this company and do this one. And we asked to do the same thing for all our partners in order to make the project one university, one industrial partner, bring a partner, a known partner, because it's easier to work with someone you know and you know that he is not afraid by academic. Because sometimes when we would talk with SMEs, because we can say that, okay, maybe you are a researcher, so I can't discuss with you, so we won't have nothing to do each other. But if academics come with their known company, well, they can discuss with this company and propose, make something together. So it was quite easy for us to have some academical partners, and each academical partners finds their own company to bring to the project. So it was quite easier, but we are, for the moment, 4 on the paper, but we can welcome other companies, of course, because it will be more interesting with a lot of company in order to let students go to each company participating to the project.
Thank you. Joana, tell us about your interaction with the Porto Business School. You're lucky that you have a business school that seems to be sympathetic with what you're trying to do, and I think we could all understand more about how do you decide your students, how much science should they learn, how much time should they spend in the business school?
Yes, we are lucky to have this business school in Porto, and with which we collaborate actually. And in this business ignition program that CIIMAR created together with the University of Porto and Porto Business School, so it's there that we interact even more, because we try to have these type of programs, but directly specific for academia, because you find this type of programs, but for entrepreneurs that would like to build their business. But this is specific for academia, and we are there in Porto in a very nice environment for this, and also regarding the advanced training and following what the colleagues just mentioned, with this, how to interact with the companies and how to engage them, let's say. So we have we are participating in advanced training programs as PhDs and master trainings, and in these programs the students will do their thesis in a company environment, and it's the companies that will let us know what are their needs, what are their problems, and so the thesis will be developed responding to these needs of the companies, and they will be done in this industrial context, which is very important, and it's very important for future collaborations with CIIMAR also, because you have their students that are both in CIIMAR facilities, but also in the company. So this is a very interesting starting point, and for us, we see that we cannot be just waiting that the companies come and ask us if we can solve some problem, or waiting that companies let us know what are the needs. So we need to go there, and in Portugal we have some very nice companies that are very innovative, but not all are very fond of hiring a PhD. You know, they do not really understand the need of this investment, because hiring a PhD is really a very high investment. So when you start with this, when you start by having this PhD training in the context of their company, they will understand that it will definitely make a difference. Also, we have developing a pre-graduation program that is also made in the industrial context, and this is being very successful, because we open applications to students of the University of Porto, and we get to have these students that are the best students of University of Porto being having this small stage in a company, and they will be engaged in research, you know, and many of them after this they will do a master with us, and you know, we are finding this very profitable, this type of approach, investing in building capacity.
So let me ask each of you in turn, starting with Sébastien. One of the great trends in education around the world now is students asking for, even demanding, practical experience at the end of their degree. So a placement in a company for 2 months, 3 months, in order to get some understanding about the business world and the rigors of trying to have a for-profit company rather than an academic institution. And so, you know, when I look around the world and see master's programs, even undergraduate programs that are doing particularly well in Japan or Australia or in North America, the ones that are somehow able to deliver this practical experience are doing very well. So could you tell me how you think about that challenge? How do you try and get the companies you're involved with to take on a student for some period, and whether you think that's part of the core of the educational process?
Well, I think that, of course, it's one of the most important points in the education process to have to share your time between practical work in a company and regular training. But companies are quite not so receptive to this demand. There are some ways, however, it's quite changing right now because, in some countries, in France particularly, there is a consciousness that we have to train earlier our young people to the needs of the companies. And the education, the part-time education between a company and university, for instance, is getting much more stronger. We do have developed a Blue Train program between several universities and companies, and this is for the initial and continuous training of young people, and this is mixing the different universities and companies' needs. The companies have been able to express their needs. So that's maybe not that obvious, but companies are willing to hire or to get people for internships, for instance. But I do believe that, those who are having the most social vision of what a company should be are willing to invest in this direction. I will also add that the cluster is not only a way to certify some projects. It's also because the certification of the cluster is compulsory to apply to some fundings in France. The cluster is also a way to certify some training programs. And in addition to the 300 certified projects that we have by now, we do also have certified 26 training programs. This is we have a board of 26 members, which are elected for 3 years period of time. And among this board of members, we do have some, of course, industrial partners. And we do have this close working relationships between the industrial and the training and academics through this certification of training programs. And that's a way also, among our small community of members of the clusters, but to find, of course, some jobs for students or internships for students from universities, because all our members have good knowledge normally of what are the specific topics on which academics are offering trainings.
Well, what I can say is that students are aware that they need to go to the enterprise. So if you look at French students from the first year of university until the 5th year of university, the student will spend at least 10 months in the SMEs. The first training period will be in the 3rd year of the university for 2 or 3 months. Then, in the 4th year of the university, you have also a training period or a work period in SMEs for 3 or 4 months. And then, by the end of the master, students will spend half of the year in SME. So, at the beginning of the training period or the work placement, it's a student, but at the end, it's not a student anymore. It's a professional. aware of everything that he needs to know of an industry. And most of the time, the student will remain in the SME to work with the SME on a project, on a program, or on to be part of the SME, because, well, he was formed by the enterprise and is now ready to bring something to the enterprise. So this is important to let the student enter in the enterprise and then let him some time to learn everything he needs to become a professional. And at the end, you can recruit this student or let him go for another project, maybe a thesis. Because in France, there is some help, governmental help to recruit students to make a thesis in an enterprise. It's called CIFRE. And this allows the SME to recruit a PhD student and to work with this PhD student for 3 years. So it's important to know that as an enterprise in France, you can recruit a student for 3 years with the help of the government and bring maybe a project, go further with this student, and at the end, well, you can keep the student with you.
Okay. Just adding, regarding Portugal, we do not have directly this financing from the government, but these PhD programs that I mentioned, that one example is Sunfeed. It's a doctoral program that is financed, so the students will have a scholarship to perform the thesis and to develop the thesis in this industrial environment. And what we found is that the companies, they are very happy to have these high skilled persons working in their companies, and you know, it's not always is very easy to find a compromise between what are the needs in terms of production of a company and what are the expectations of a PhD student, that is to produce papers as fast as possible and to deliver the thesis. And by the side of the company, they don't want the student to publish what they just discovered. But we are getting, you know, to a very interesting compromise, that is waiting just a bit before publishing the paper, and the students are aware of this, that they cannot publish in the first year of research, so they will need to wait a bit to consider if the company will fill a patent or if they would like, you know, some part of what they are working with will be confidential. But also there is some possibilities of presenting the thesis in a more confidential way. So we are getting the companies to be more confident in receiving in their companies these students.
Thank you all. And in just a minute, I'm going to ask you if there's something we haven't covered that you'd like to cover, so you can think a bit about that question. But let me come to the most controversial topic, and that's politics and government. So everything we're doing, trying to develop businesses and increase the interface between academia and industry, is of course happening in this political environment. And some countries are lucky enough to have some stability. And in other countries, we've had quite dramatic changes of policy in France and Canada, for example, and maybe in the other direction in the USA. In my homeland in Australia, we have a one-seat majority by one party, and so we've done nothing for 2 years. And so in this environment, we're trying to advance the blue economy. In some ways, I feel that we've become a political football. You know, one side or another has said, yeah, we believe in renewables, we believe in, you know, energy from algae, and we're going to charge for the cost of CO2 pollution, and the other side has said, no, we don't believe in that. So I think of my colleagues in Scripps who started the CO2 experiments in 1958 by President Eisenhower, and have kept going ever since, and suddenly we're a Chinese hoax. And we've faked all the data for 54 years. So how can we prepare our students for this environment? When we started our new master's degrees, we thought we'd covered it all. We did some science, we did some economics, we did, the interface with the business community. And 5 years later, the main criticism we get from our placement of our students is, you never taught me how to exist in this political world. So maybe I can start with Joanna this time. How do you try to prepare people for this sort of partisan world that some countries seem to have adopted?
Well, it's not it's not easy, and probably not all the research centers consider that as their role, it's day by day work, really. But regarding how the policies and all of this that change, and we are in a world of changing, definitely. I believe that Portugal is definitely in a good momentum for all of these investments, and with a very good and focused strategy for the sea and for the aquatic environment. So in Portugal we do have the resources, the biodiversity. We do have the skills. So we do have formed and trained people for all of this, and we are definitely in a good momentum to have this and to give a good input in the blue bioeconomy. I believe this.
I have my own. We have our microphone. Well, concerning this crucial point, well, that's true that we are actually forming students for maybe a job, and within 5 years they're going to do another job. But they have to be open-minded and opportunistic. But it's student-dependent. We cannot learn them how to become opportunistic, but we can let them come back to teachers or to researchers or to the university, to academicals, maybe to clusters even, to, okay, if they need something else, they can ask us, and we can maybe bring them some solution. So I think we have to be ready to help them. Even if they quit the university system since 5 or 10 years, we are here for them. So I think if they are coming back to us, we have to answer to their question. But we cannot learn them how to become adaptive and opportunistic. I think it's student dependent.
Tony, your question is getting with policy making. That's it? Yeah. And that's, of course, one of the points that we are looking after very deeply, either on the regional side, on the national side, and on the European level also. And that's true that while we are dependent from what the government is willing to implement, as we are depending from the success of our projects. If we succeed in bringing innovation on the market, of course we'll have a good opinion for the government. But we have to be wiser and to go further. And above France, there is also the European community. And we are very involved in the various groups in the EEC, either in projects. We are taking part in some innovation projects on the European level, but also in some lobbying group in order to fight for our ideas, and maybe that's correct, but to develop our ideas that the blue economy is could be successful only if all the complete chain is is taken into consideration. And the chain is starting from the academics, from students, to the markets. If we take this as a whole, normally we should build sustainable and profitable economics. So we are very involved in all this lobbying action. Be aware that France has a new government recently, that we are depending from these maybe coming changes, but that we have to get to look forward and to find out some other way to develop what we feel is very important for our region, to find out some new concepts, for instance here with Quebec partners, the most important for us is in fact that our members are successful. If they find good reasons in our action, they will continue to support us. And if they continue to support us, we will be visible and have a good vision from the government. So we only have one way, I will say, is to success in bringing people to work together. So from once again from students to the company, because we have to be sustainable in our conception of the blue economy.
Thank you. I think the success of the companies is about the best antidote we have in our current system. So in just a minute, I'm going to entertain questions from the audience. Pierre has the first question in a minute. But please, we have a microphone here and an opportunity to ask this panel anything you like. But first, I'm going to give our panelists, starting with Joana, an opportunity to summarize and cover maybe anything that you wanted to say that we didn't get to.
To summarize, just to let you know that CIIMAR has a strategy to deliver innovation and in blue bioeconomy, and this strategy passes by the capacity building. So to invest in the skills of the researchers through all these trainings, either by advanced training as PhDs or masters, or either these trainings that are devoted for business and more devoted to this. And we believe that we are in the good way to this. Thank you.
I always have mine. Well, I would say, since for me students are the key for the future of the blue economy, so please don't hesitate to invest on students, in their formation, and don't hesitate to let them enter in your enterprise in order to let them discover your enterprise and recruit them then after, if they are good, of course.
Well, for me, to summarize, the innovation process can be successful if it's taken as a whole with a transversal approach. That's from marketing to technological issue. If we want to be successful, we have to consider innovation process as a whole, as a complete value chain. From social to technological issues, marketing, and so on. And getting, of course, a global approach also with all the partners involved in the innovation process. It's not only with the researchers, it also has to deal with companies and students who can also bring some new skills in companies. People are getting older, they are not used to use new IT skills that they do not know how to cope with. Also, students can be also a way to give a new breath in these companies.
Thank you. And now let's just check the microphone. The question microphone is active.
It's working.
Yep.
So, Tony, my question is, I have two questions, maybe for you and Stephanie. Because Stephanie is struggling to try to convince industry to get into the master. So, from your experience at Scripps, because for the last 10 years, you've been the mastermind, organizing everything with private money. So what would be the advice you give to Stephanie to convince the industry to follow her and to bring more, I'd say, support to this industry education key system?
Well, I think my experience is, in terms of marine biotechnology, we went too far in advance of the marketplace. So my colleague Steve Mayfield created this great set of degrees really aimed to service the algae fuel industry. And while we still have the support of the state government in California, which is still the 6th largest economy in the world, we don't have the support of the 1st or 2nd largest economy in the world, the United States. And so, we created too many biotechnologists to service an industry that we were all convinced was about to explode. So that's quite bad news and bad for a university program. I think the good news is that those students found jobs mostly in the human health industry. And so just by luck, we happened to do this in San Diego, which has a blossoming, drug discovery industry. But that was luck rather than any kind of planning. My experience has been the companies have been fantastic. I mean, my colleague Steve Mayfield went to each of the companies around San Diego and said, can you take not just 1 or 2 of our master's students, but 6 or 7? And they said, whoa, and we walked through Steve had to find, insurance for them in the workplace because, they're in laboratories. They have to deal with HR departments. I mean, a massive array of problems that Steve was able to work his way through. So I think the problem, the companies were fantastic. And I think the university was quite open to starting new degree programs. I think our problem was, not understanding the political landscape and how quickly things could go from very supportive to something else. Anybody else want to talk about successes or problems or?
Another success is also a very pragmatic approach of how to find out some jobs. We do contribute to the job events dedicated to maritime sector. On one day, companies can express what they are looking for, what kind of skills. And this is taking place in Brest for the third time, yeah. And it's doing quite well as there are many companies we are offering jobs for people who are or for students. And I think also it's a way for academics to meet and to get input from companies on how and on what they should train their students. So I invite you to look at this website. It's called Pro and Mer, and it's quite a successful experience also that we have participated to since 3 years. Yeah.
That's a great example. Now, any other questions from the audience? Yeah. Please take a minute to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Christophe Moquet. I'm with University Côte d'Azur, which is in Nice, south of France. And I'm really happy to see that France is maybe on its way to have multiple masters in bioeconomy and blue economy, because we are also designing this at University Côte d'Azur. It's going to open only next year. You were speaking about industry and science in ocean. But you mentioned mostly industry in developed countries, and maybe to try to find a way also to open the employability of our students, we can also maybe speak about emerging countries, because, well, I had the opportunity to meet some local authorities, like, for example, in fantastic countries like Belize, which is so in South America, not exactly, but on the Atlantic side, and other countries also in Indian Ocean, where it seems that they don't have the choice to develop their blue economy, because in a lot of those countries, it's only resources they have. So it's not like in developed countries where we find this really fancy, but, well, when it's time to invest money, we have also other priorities. It's really crucial for them. And in discussing with them, it turns out that they don't need us, I mean, scientists or people developing technology, to catch fish, to sell fish, maybe not also to harvest seaweed, but to develop products with a higher value. It's as if they're blocked, like they have a ceiling they cannot pass through, because they don't have maybe the proper scientific approach. And I think they need maybe our students also. So it may be also a possibility for our students also to find a job through NGOs and so on. But not only, my point, sorry, it's a bit long, is that just maybe we can propose our students not only to find a job in our developed countries, but also to participate in the development of those countries. It's not really a question, so I could turn this to a question if you think about this.
Well, if I can, thank you, Tony. Well, I will make another comment concerning your comments. What we can do, of course, is incitating our students to go there. That this is the first point. But what we can do also is to receive students from developing country. 2 years ago, we received not in the Blue Master, but in the Biotech Master, we received a student from Indonesia, and we give him the opportunity to follow the master course, to come back then with the European skills needed to develop products. So, well, we decided to, when we are constructing a master, we are trying to giving the best skill to the students. So, and this student came back to Indonesia with, well, our way to prepare a product and to transform a product. Maybe he use it as a European student, or maybe he adapt all the skills given to his country because he hasn't the same material or so on. So, well, of course, we can incite our student to go there. This is, I will, well, send students everywhere if I could, even in Africa or in Indonesia or in Belize or in Brazil, and where we want, where they want to go, if they want. This is maybe another point, another critical point, because sometimes students don't want to go far. Yeah. Sometimes.
Okay. Another question? Sure. I think we'll have to make this the last question, but thank you.
No problem. I have a question because we talk a lot about like the link between industries and research, and I can't stop but wondering what is the part of just the fundamental research that are not business oriented or that are free from the influence of the big industries. That's something that I'm afraid of, that, well, I'm a big business, I make $1 billion a year, I will invest in research, but if the results are against me, oh, that will be bad. So I'm kind of afraid that the research will all focus on the industry need. Not that I don't want it, of course, I would really like it, but it's just, I would like to hear your opinion on that.
I would like to comment on that because, it's something that you could be afraid of, but still, not all research is applied, and not all financing programs are financing what is applied. And this follows what I mentioned before, that is this participation in complete consortium projects, that you still can perform your fundamental research, envisaging an application, of course. But this fundamental research is very important to achieve the end and to achieve the end user. This is, I think it makes all the sense. And I believe that fundamental research is still being financed, and it will be, definitely.
Well, I agree with that point of view, because we need both. We need applied research, of course, and we need fundamental research. But, letting students learning skills will help them to do both. Fundamental research if they are working in a lab or in a fundamental lab, or applied research if they are in a lab also, or in an SME. So, we can do both. Of course, we need to do both.
I will just conclude very briefly, but research has to be sustainable. It means that it should not be only business-oriented. It should be human-oriented, and to help, of course, company to earn money, but also to give a better way to how we interact each other. I don't think you have to, in our organization we are very conscious that, of course, we have to earn money, but also that we do promote that sustainable development is only possible with a global target, which is not only profit-oriented. It's one point, but it's not the only one. And in this point, research is, of course, essential to get on the top of the wave.
And I'll just conclude by saying I think it's a very real concern, but to give you some comfort with two examples, I think I'm on the board of trustees of WorldFish based in Penang in Malaysia, and we have a whole suite of intellectual property to do with tilapia and sustainable aquaculture. And that's all been developed with World Bank funds and the old USAID and agencies in Europe. So people are aware that there's valuable things to do in the developing world that maybe won't make money in the developed world. And I think the second example is if you just look at the people who are funding anti-malaria drugs, Gates Foundation in USA, Wellcome Trust in the UK. A lot of the gaps that existed 15 years ago, I think, have been filled by these private philanthropists. And so, some people worry about their lack of accountability and so on. But I think the track record is a lot of these important needs that we weren't fulfilling, say, with our capitalist society, have really been filled by another mechanism. So I hope that's some comfort. I think it's a real issue. Okay, it's time for us to finish. I would like you to join with me in thanking our fabulous panel, and they'll be around, so please